welcome to another installment of Cookie Pocket. Ooh, it's been a long time. I, for one, am brushing the cobwebs off of my microphone and my brain. It's good to be back. I'm Christian, joined as always by Zach and Mitchell. And
hello.
Before we dig into our film, how are you guys doing?
I'm okay.
Yeah, same here. Doing pretty okay. I have an actual microphone this season, so we have developments.
Hold it like that the whole time?
I am gonna hold it like this whole time. I have an actual microphone. I don't have a mount for it yet, so slowly but surely. I like to say I told Mitchell I'm in YouTuber video essay mode at the moment. But yeah, I got an actual microphone this season. I just completed my senior capstone at film school, and I'm desperately looking for work right now. If you needed an editor or a sound man, despite the fact that I don't have a microphone mount, I do have a boom pole, so hit me up however you might want to. But yeah, we're back.
Yay! Everyone's waiting eagerly in anticipation for this to come out because we're actually madly famous in multiple countries, not to exclude Germany and Sri Lanka, according to Anchor. So,
wow,
our biggest fan base.
Yes, as crucial a demographic as any. Well, today we're discussing Akira Kurosawa's Dreams, released in 1990, and essentially, if we take Kurosawa at his word, explicitly based on dreams that he had recurring experiences of. And if you've seen the film, you'll notice in the opening credits Amblin and ILM and Martin Scorsese even acts in the film. So there's some big Hollywood and just auteur directors here supporting Kurosawa financially and creatively. And that's a heartwarming thing for cinephiles such as ourselves. It's an interesting structure. There are 8 sort of, I wouldn't call them vignettes. I think they're all a little bigger than that, but they do stand independent of the other dreams depicted. And I'm sure we'll dig into them in a minute. But before we do that, general thoughts and our arbitrary ratings out of 5. What did you guys think?
Well, I'll jump in here.
Yep.
I think I gave this the highest rating out of any of us. That might just be because I don't give half stars, but I gave it a 4 out of 5, which for me is a great rating. And a lot of Kurosawa for me ends up being a 4 out of 5, but I do think I kind of have different priorities with him than certainly than you do, Christian. I know you're a really big Rashomon fan, and for me, Rashomon is just a very good movie. But I think I enjoyed this more than Rashomon.
Oh wow!
I am a big fan of the idea of just basing your films entirely and literally off of your own dreams, and I like how he stays true to that throughout the whole movie. I like how the segments will just end because that's when his alarm went off, and so the dream never ended. I like that there's things that don't really make sense in terms of why there are characters there, and I think in a lot of cases, even when maybe the dialogue's a little heavy-handed, the visuals always really work. And I was always really struck by how the film looked, which to me is a very big priority with filmmaking and in general. I'm a really, really big proponent of style in filmmaking. And if you don't have the visual style there, what's the point? The style kind of is the purpose of filmmaking, in my opinion. So this one really worked for me, even if some of the latter dreams were a little kind of like, okay, is this old man going to talk for 10 more minutes about his wagon wheels? Come on, let's move it. So 4 out of 5, I did enjoy it, but I will admit that there's definitely some fault in the storytelling here.
How much money you want to bet he actually had these dreams? You know what I'm saying?
He might have.
I don't have dreams like this. I don't have Japanese spirits dancing and old men talking for a long time in mine. Mine is usually like something I get dragged by dogs and my art teacher is watching it happen or something. Or I'm like flying across Baltimore for like 2 seconds and then I get hit by a plane or something. That's what mine are about. Okay. I wonder, I bet he was visualizing the movie in his dreams. I bet he had a dream that he made this movie. I think that's what it was.
Maybe.
And that makes more sense to me. But regardless, I really like this movie, and I do think it's a stylistically driven film when it comes to how each dream is portrayed. And there is like a dreamlike sense to them, but I really appreciate like Kurosawa's how much he's calculated with like his own style. Like he wants to keep to his own style, and I know that's like really general, but like it still feels like a 70s film almost. It still there's very conventional decisions, I feel like, with like the camera movements and concentrating on those dance sequences and having that rough structure for each dream kind of being sort of the same. And all the dreams are very loosely related when it comes to themes, and I think the major theme is kind of, punted at the end with the last dream. But I really appreciate that. I feel like that's really what makes it unique, because there's so many different cliches you could do. Well, it's a dreamlike sequence, so we have to do this or that. I feel like the fact that it's a dream kind of speaks on its own, based on the plot of each dream and kind of the way that they're talking. Now, in a sense, I do feel like it's a little bit scapegoaty, and I don't know if that's like a really rough word to use or not, but I do feel like there's a lot of like, well, it's just a dream, it's abstract, so you can do whatever you want. I feel like that's a necessary evil almost in this way, and it's something that can be easily passed when you realize how much of a technical expert Kurosawa is, and how every single, I said it in my review, it's like pixel, like every single person is choreographed exactly a certain way, and it just makes those scenes that there's nothing going on, but it not only looks really good, but it just flows very like sequentially and at just the right pace, where it's like you want to know what happens next. And I guess that's kind of just a Kurosawa trademark, but I think it really pays off well, having multiple dream sequences in that way. Otherwise, there's really not a lot to write home about, like thematically. Like, there's nothing that you could take home away from this, honestly, that's not already been said at another time, or maybe he's said himself already in other works. So I gave it a 3.5 out of 5. I think it's really good, but I also don't, I don't want to, there's nothing that's like gargantuanly great about this. I think it's just a Kurosawa film that are dreams that he may or may not have had, and I think that's great. So
I think it's weirdly serendipitous that you mentioned the pixel thing, because there is one of the original Japanese posters for this movie is the rainbow visual from Sunshine Through the Rain, but then the rainbow is disintegrating into pixels. I don't know why, because that has nothing to do really.
I've never
with the
seen
themes
that.
of the movie, but that is one of the original posters.
He's in my head. Get it out.
Kurosawa's subconscious is all powerful.
Yeah.
Well, I think this film's sort of an interesting benchmark for me. I had gotten this Blu-ray, I think over a year ago during one of the Criterion sales, because I was really getting into Kurosawa, but I decided I wanted to save it until after I graduated from college. I'm not sure why. And at the time, I don't think it was even a cookie pocket motivated decision to wait to review it with you guys to watch it. I just think I wanted to sit on it some more. And Zach, you encouraged me, I think, to review his filmography as chronologically as possible. And I sort of did that, but I sort of didn't do that. And like, I think Ron was the first one I saw, and I think I had to watch that for a class. But
I think you did, yeah. I think you mentioned that.
But I definitely, films like Rashomon definitely reflect my priorities in film more. I'm more of a story guy. And I mean, when we look at Kurosawa's body of work in a broader sense, I think it's amazing how much he does with color here, because all of his most acclaimed films, I mean, Rashomon, Seven Samurai, we could throw in Yojimbo, Hidden Fortress, Ikiru, Throne of Blood, my goodness, all in black and white. So it's really incredible what he does with color here. I think in all of them, even the sort of more monochromatic works like The Blizzard have this really intense mood to the blue hue, but at the same time, I do think I side a little bit more with Mitchell. I don't know if I'm comfortable just broadly praising The Thing as a masterpiece. Even though I have like the highest opinion of Kurosawa, I would certainly consider calling him my favorite director. He's right up there. I think the only director I've seen more films of is Steven Spielberg, and that's probably more to do with being an American person.
Yeah. Being an American that exists.
Yeah. So Dreams is not my favorite Kurosawa, not by a long shot, but I do appreciate what he's doing here visually, and I still wonder how he thinks through how he wants to visualize these things. Even if these are dreams he remembers, I doubt he remembers the exact frame of reference he has for each instance of them. And I also think it's fun to open with this in this season because, and I was saying this to Zach when we were chatting the other day, I think this is probably a film that would have driven me nuts in season 1 of Cookie Pocket. I would have been like, this has no freaking point. Yeah. And all these pretty colors, but it's not saying anything original, and it's not. There's no plot-based suspense. What is this nonsense?
Now, Toy Story 3. Yeah, Toy Story 4. Don't even get me started. That's the masterpiece of the 21st century.
Yes.
I think is something you said in season 1.
I still believe in Toy Story 4 supremacy. Maybe we'll talk about that at some point. What was I saying?
Season 1. Thoughts in season 1.
Yes. So I don't know. I think it's nice that I can at least absorb this in a different way, and also the old man talking about how climate disasters are sad and whatever. That's probably something that would have annoyed me in the past, and it does drag a little bit. But I also maybe I'm just willing to give Kurosawa more latitude because of how much his earlier works have touched me, and yeah, I don't know. In a way, that's nice. So I landed on a 3.5, like Mitchell, but it is what it is, and I'm not sure if I would recommend this to anyone. Really, I would have to know someone pretty well and their tastes. But,
do you think I should watch Dreams? No, I don't know you well enough.
I think you could definitely. I might recommend segments of it.
Sure. Yeah.
Like there's friends of mine who I would definitely, who might not even be really into film, who I would recommend Crows to, because I think it's really interesting to see those Van Gogh paintings like immaculately reconstructed in live action. I think that's really interesting, and that's a shorter segment, so you don't have to sit through 14 minutes of an old man talking about watermills.
Yeah, maybe we should break into the segments now. Did you guys have a favorite segment or a least favorite segment? And did the chronology of Dreams mean anything to you, or was it just kind of a hodgepodge?
Well, I definitely... Oh, no, Zach. You go first.
Okay, all right. In terms of favorites, I think the Blizzard and the Tunnel, for me, were the two, and those are back-to-back, and those are where it really started to work for me. I really like, in terms of technically, I like everything about the way that the Blizzard is executed. I think it looks really amazing. With, you mentioned those blues and the constant onslaught of the snow, but even though it's clearly a set, it's also just so concise in how it's filmed, and you get these really high angles, and it really much feels like its own world. But the sound in the Blizzard too, I think is really excellent, because it really puts you right there with these four mountaineers. There's like 5 minutes of just like huffing and puffing that it opens with, that I think, even though it does get a little like, oh boy, all right, these guys are tired, I get it. It really kind of puts you in that situation with them. And then later when they start to speak to each other, that kind of deep echo that's on their voices, I find that really effective as well, because it gives you a real feel of where they are and how alone they are in this setting. And the Tunnel, I think, as well. The Tunnel, for me, I think had maybe one of the best stories, and it incorporates a message really well without an old man next to a watermill just talking to another character for 14 minutes. Like there is some discussion amongst the characters that kind of tells us the morals, but it's it's sort of evoked as well, more than it's just directly stated. In terms of a least favorite segment, I think the one that's maybe least effective is Mount Fuji in red. Just because I like that great big wide shot with those sort of old-fashioned visual effects of Mount Fuji sort of erupting. But in terms of the actual story, it's very choppy, where the mountain is erupting and now we're next to the sea and everybody jumped into it. And I know you didn't see that, but I swear they did. And it feels the choppiest, and it feels the most like, here we are to tell you why nuclear energy is bad. And despite the fact that whether you agree or disagree with that, like just having 4 characters sort of stand in front of the seaside and go, well, here we are by the seaside. How about that nuclear energy? It feels like the worst told of the stories.
Yeah, it feels like a segment from Godzilla where they have to explain exactly like what's going on from a scientific standpoint,
which might kind of be the point. Like of the segments, that one definitely feels the most like it's trying to evoke a different kind of film. But the fact that maybe it would have been a little more. A little easier to swallow if there had actually been some kind of like a creature or a bigger active threat to like put you in that feeling of one of those old Godzilla films. But since the creature is just the mountain and some colored smoke, it loses that intensity and that feeling that they might be trying to evoke.
Mm-hmm. I think I'm gonna totally second Zach. I already determined that the blizzard and the tunnel were the best ones. I know you would have expected the tunnel being like the favorite one, but I think that the problem, I think the biggest, most repetitive issue with the whole film is having that teacher-student, like somebody has to be lectured in like a vague way that conveys a message, because even though stylistically it's basically perfect, and it's in terms of like the actual like the shots and when certain characters show up and like the general, I guess, like storyboard, but having that like teacher, like always having that same punchline basically, it's like, well, you know that there's going to be like this wandering random person that's like has like no background at all, and then they find this person that has all the background and all the wisdom, and they explain to them what their problem is. The tunnel, he basically figures it out on his own. As the, I guess the private is sort of like the first educational thing, but he understands based on his own background what his issue is, and I feel like that seeing that play out is far more compelling. Similarly with the blizzard, having the mountaineers like as they're dying, and even though the spirits kind of like educating them a little bit, it wasn't like a direct like teacher thing. It was like, we're telling you this is how death is and this is how it is, and then you have to cope with that, and then he decides out of his own volition that this is what they need to keep trying. And I feel like that's those two storylines make a lot more sense with how calculated Kurosawa can be when it comes to the color palette, like you guys talked about, and the various visual effects that are very strategically used. And I think like the Mount Fuji thing is the most clean-cut version of that, and I agree that's probably the weakest one, especially considering that format doesn't work as well. I mean, it works better for the first one and for the Fox one and for the last one, just because it's a child, and obviously the child already has that like relationship with the mother, and then telling it through that a medium makes more sense, and then having the eldest person, it's the sign-off message from Kurosawa basically. So I think those are definitely the two strongest ones, and Mount Fuji's just so blatantly trying to convey a certain message that at least it was short is what I have to say.
The one that's like, I think they get like really lecture-y after the halfway point. The one that I'm kind of okay with the lecture is Crows, because not only is it Van Gogh, but it's also having Scorsese play Van Gogh kind of makes it feel more believable that he would just go off on a rant like that, because Scorsese does that when asked about anything. So it's a little more believable, and there's also that context of a man who's actively trying to learn about art and sort of asking, teacher, tell me, rather than, well, let me tell you, just totally unprompted outside of a couple like, so where do the watermills come from? I keep picking on the watermills. I don't hate it, but it's the easiest example to kind of draw from.
Yeah. I will say for the crows, that is what it's called, right? The crows?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What I was most impressed by in that one was how seamlessly Kurosawa transitions between the languages. Everything else is in Japanese, but we get a little bit of French and a lot of English from Van Gogh / Scorsese, and I think it totally works. I don't feel like it's his, at least at the time, I didn't feel like it was his second language or like there was anything lost in translation, and I think that's impressive. In terms of my favorites, I hate to just say the same thing over and over again, but yeah, the Blizzard and the Tunnel are definitely the two strongest in my view as well. The Blizzard, in particular, reminded me of the Ray Bradbury short story about the endless rain. I forget what the exact title is, but it's in the Illustrated Man.
Yeah. Oh, I know which one you're talking about, but I forget the title too.
Yeah, it gives this feeling of the oppressive rain and just this like feeling the same sensation nonstop being more oppressive than the sensation itself, if that makes sense. And that was communicated just as strongly in this film. In partial defense of Mount Fuji in Red, I will just say I liked what the performers did with it, because there wasn't a feeling of, okay, now we have to fill this space with more dialogue. There's a lot of like fruitless standing around and this impending doom that nothing can fix, and to the point where he's like taking his jacket off and trying to like wave away the toxic fumes or whatever. And I don't know. And he takes his time. Kurosawa takes his time a lot in this film, and I think that's where it bothered me the least. And maybe that's just because the segment is the shortest as a whole, but I think that gave me the strongest sense of how people might behave in that situation, as opposed to how characters behave in a dream. I also liked, it goes a little long, but I liked the idea behind the peach orchard, and I liked the dialogue given to the child there. My least favorite is A Village of the Watermills, and I'll just echo what Zach's been saying. It's just a lot of talking, but I get it. It's supposed to be like based around Kurosawa's home or something, and whatever. So he gets a pass.
I do love the funeral at the end of Village of the Watermills, though. I think that's a really great visual. That the film opens with a wedding and closes with a funeral, and the funeral is this big celebration as the old man puts on his high visibility jacket and joins the parade.
Zach really hates this stupid old man, guys.
I really don't,
because
in my review I said that the old man basically is Kurosawa, so I don't want to be like too mean, but actively, if the Village of the Watermills was not where it is in the film, I think it would definitely be the one that everybody picked on, because the fact that it's at the end kind of gives it this sort of like goodbye, farewell, heed my messages sort of feel. If it was in the middle, everybody would be like, when is this old man gonna shut up?
It does have this feeling of like the Prospero is Shakespeare kind of stand-in, and yeah, even though I love Kurosawa, I don't know if I'm a fan of ascribing that to oneself in any context, really. But I don't know if I had any other specific questions about this one. I think it's difficult to describe and difficult to numerically evaluate, as I said in my Letterboxd review. But yeah, I don't know. I'm glad we got to talk about it. Any closing thoughts?
I don't know if I have closing thoughts necessarily. I think I definitely enjoyed it the most, even though I might have been the most unkind to it in this discussion. But this is definitely kind of upper tier Kurosawa for me. I don't like it as much as Ron, and I certainly don't like it as much as Seven Samurai. But I do enjoy it a lot more than some of his other earlier black and white work that people really praise. One, my most recent Kurosawa watch that this trumped was I like this more than One Wonderful Sunday, for instance, which might be sort of surprising to some. But I certainly think it's worth it. We've said a lot about it being very visual and very preachy, but I certainly think it's worth checking out if you haven't seen it. Basically, all Kurosawa is worth checking out if you haven't seen it.
This is my second Kurosawa movie. Can you believe that?
That's crazy.
What are you doing, Christian?
Yeah, whoopsie.
You're really messing me up right now. I went from Rashomon to this.
That's insane.
What?
Well,
Well, I liked Rashomon better.
Okay.
I liked Rashomon better. Okay. A lot happened in those 40 years, I know. I'll catch up sooner or later. But I liked how the dreams were somehow connected based on the I don't know, what's the literary term for that character, the narrator person, I don't know, the one walking through everything.
Yeah.
He's not the narrator.
The first person perspective,
like the kid, going from the kid to the adult to like
how
going towards the end. Yeah,
the lead kind of grows up throughout the
a little bit. Yeah, and I like how the lead like stayed the same too. You know, just the continuity was fun.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I have anything else to say. Yeah, it was a fun little excursion. I definitely don't feel like it dragged really badly though, just because with well, I mean Kurosawa, you have so much to anticipate, I guess, is my assumption. But I think it was clearly, like Zach had mentioned in his review, like it could have easily been like his last movie, or like it kind of has a send-off vibe to it, and I feel like this is like the perfect way to kind of characterize the reason why you do what you do and kind of put a fine point on your profession, and I feel like it really comes across as like a personal work, and that's always something to be appreciated.
Yeah. Well said. In my Akira Kurosawa ranked list, I have Dreams at 14th of 17 that I've seen so far.
Oh my god.
wow.
So, that's on the lower side, but I mean, everything above Dreams is a 4 or higher. So
what's under it?
Kagemusha, The Bad Sleep Well, and The Idiot.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and those are all fine too. Like none of those are bad, but no, I definitely just prefer the story-based storytelling, I guess, for lack of a better phrase. And even though black and white has been a burden for me in the past, I just find much of what he's done in the 50s so much more engaging. But he's earned this, let's say. The same way that Steven Spielberg had earned The Fabelmans, I think Kurosawa certainly earned Dreams. And if you are into this type of cinema, you will probably get something out of it. So that's that. Okay. Week in Review. Who wants to go first?
Well, I can jump in on Week in Review.
Yeah.
So this is a just earlier today viewing, but I was looking for something to watch to take a break from some of the editing I've been doing, and so I popped on Enigma, which was on Tubi. Now there's a lot of different films called Enigma. This is the one spelled A-E-N, directed by Cookie Pocket alum Lucio Fulci, who directed The Beyond. Now there's obviously some a lack of love in this group for Lucio Fulci. But I'm a fan, even though a lot of his films are very scrappy and very sloppy, to not put too fine a point on it. I was surprised at how precise visually this movie is. There's a lot of really kind of impressive camera work and direction in it, which you don't really expect from a Lucio Fulci movie because he's known as the scrappy improvisational guy. There's a scene early on in this film where a woman dies in the hospital, and you see first person, the perspective of her spirit rising out of her body and then up through 3 floors of a hospital into a model shot above like a city. And it's a really amazing visual. I mean, it's clearly a model once you get out there, but it's not the kind of big scale sort of visual that I expect from a Lucio Fulci film. That said, despite some interesting visuals, the plot is pretty much just a bog standard, like a woman is killed in a car crash and her ghost comes back to to take revenge upon the people who orchestrated her death. It's pretty basic. That said, the production design is occasionally hilarious. The film is set at a college, a fictional college in Boston, and most of the characters are these co-ed college students. And so a lot of the film takes place in their dorms. But the production designer clearly did not really know what college-age girls would put on the walls of their dorms. So he just went to the local library and used whatever posters he could find. I would like to now read for you a list of the posters visible on the dorm walls in Enigma. Here we go. A poster that says "Read," featuring Snoopy reading a book. Tom Cruise in Top Gun. Christopher Lambert in Highlander. David Bowie, who is labeled David Bowie. Paul Newman, who we only ever see from the nose down. Sylvester Stallone in Rocky 3. Yoda on the set of The Empire Strikes Back reading a book. A poster that in like calculator typeface just says "Libraries are user friendly." And James Dean in a tricorn hat.
Wow.
So yeah, a 2 out of 5 for Enigma. It's not very good, but it was a laugh pretty consistently, and it's got some fun visuals. Maybe check it out if you're a Fulci fan.
The college girls like to read.
And they're like a Snoopy.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I guess I should go.
Yeah.
Sure.
Well, just in time for Memorial Day weekend. Hashtag honor the fallen. Christian just saluted me. I watched Stalag 17 at the request of my father, and it's a great POW film, and it's like, it's got a lot of those jokes that you'd expect, post-World War II jokes, and it's just about a bunch of American prisoners that are like mostly sergeants, and they have to escape Stalag 17. And that premise is exactly what happens, maybe. No, actually, I think it was pretty fun, and it's got a lot of funny bits in it that you wouldn't really expect. Like, there's an ongoing background, like with the drama, but the amount of like difference between how hilarious things are and then realizing that they're literally in a prisoner of war camp, and there's like 2 SS guards that show up and have to inspect everything, and it's like, that constant back and forth is actually very engaging, and it's not as jarring as you would expect, because there is a lot of like random zany war movies, just absolutely oversaturated Hollywood in the late 40s and 50s, and I don't feel like this is one of them. It actually has a fairly clever, I guess it's Hearts War kind of got inspired by this, and this is the movie that eventually that started the premise for Hogan's Heroes. So this is like the kind of the original like Hallmark standard when it comes to, not actually Hallmark, but definition Hallmark standard of like prisoner escape movies. And I think it's pretty fun, and it's very linear, and there's not a lot of creativity you can expect. Like, how much investment are you going to put into like a film like this, I guess, is kind of the question for the investors and for the audience. Mm-hmm. But I think it's pretty enjoyable. It doesn't feel that long. There's a lot of really like, especially Animal is very compelling. He's kind of like the jokester, and there's just some really like unexpectedly good acting in this. Robert Strauss is who I'm referring to, and William Holden is kind of I guess he's the poster boy for it. So so overall, some pretty good acting. I think it's worth checking out if you're into that stuff, or you're just like looking for a Sunday watch and want to watch like one of the progenitors of POW camp movies or prisoner escape movies, whatever the genre is. And I really enjoyed it.
Nice. While this segment is called Week in Review, I'm going to cheat and talk about something I watched a little over a month ago, just because I have like this backlog of stuff that that I've been watching since we last did one of these, and I want to talk about it, man. I just want to talk about it. So and this is still kind of timely, I want to talk about Air, Ben Affleck's masterpiece,
Right, yeah.
in my view, anyway. I don't want to give away too much because Zach annoyingly still hasn't seen it, even though I'm on his
I'll get
back
to it
about
eventually.
But anyway, I wanted to see this a lot, but I don't think I had super high expectations for it. I knew it would be kind of a talkative, crowd-pleasing film. And I was like, okay, hopefully this will just have a few laughs and be that. But I went away really impressed. I did see this in theaters, actually, before it was put on Amazon. And I'm glad I did, for Ben Affleck's sake. I see you, Ben. And this is another way in which I've grown a lot since season 1, because now I'm just a fan of Ben Affleck instead of being sick of his dopey face. But
That's what Pearl Harbor does to you.
Hey.
Air is a 4.5 out of 5, and I was closer to a 5 than a 4. I really, really loved this film. And I'll quote David Ehrlich's review of this, because I think it's a perfect summary of how it does what it does. He calls it a gentleman's 6 out of 10. And for those of us out there that think that's a bad rating, I think all three of us would agree that a 3 out of 5 generally describes a film as good, if imperfect.
Yeah. Or okay.
Mm-hmm.
And Ehrlich goes on to say, like most of the movies in which Ben Affleck plays a supporting role, is also a perfect masterpiece. And yes, I agree. I think Affleck's directorial instincts are really super impressive. And one of the dilemmas he faces in this film is how to act scenes around Michael Jordan, because he needs to be in the room when Nike's recruiting him. And basically we never see his face, but we always feel his presence. And I heard some people online were strangely critical of that, but I think if you follow your thoughts through to their conclusion, I mean, the alternatives are a lot less effective. It's like do like a weird CGI deepfake thing that's uncomfortable for everyone. I guess some people wanted to see the real life Michael Jordan, who's now like 60s something, or I don't know.
Older.
Yes, too old. Or get an actor that just obviously doesn't look like Michael Jordan, and everybody knows what Michael Jordan looks like because he's an icon of America and of the sport of basketball. And so I think the way he frames those scenes is really clever, and every cast member is just terrific in here. There's truly not a weak link, and there's about like 7 or 8 consequential characters between Matt Damon, I'm listing the actors, not the characters' names, Affleck, Bateman is hilarious, Jason Bateman, Viola Davis is always great, Chris Tucker and Chris Messina are comedic greats in this. They're so charismatic, and every scene is just structured with a real dramatic payoff, but also a version of realism. There's something that annoys me in other films is like 80s nostalgia bait, and I feel like there's an acceptable amount of this here where it mostly exists to orient you in the time setting of the film than to get you excited about the fact that it's the 80s. And it was such a purposeful film, and I just really thought Affleck's decisions are masterful, and I feel like less people think it's weak filmically than they think it is unremarkable in its aspirations. But for me, I was quite touched by it, and I'll quote the last line now of my Letterboxd review. It invokes the same brand of gleeful Americana as Top Gun Maverick in an admittedly much more thoughtful way. And yeah, I adored it. I think I'll probably rewatch it again sometime this year. And hey, I gave Maverick a 4.5 out of 5 too.
I
loved Maverick as well. So, but this was just really my thing, and I've a hard time finding a legitimate objective criticism of it. So that's where I'm at with Air. What's next for us?
Alrighty.
The Marvelous Cinematoire?
I think so, yeah.
All right.
Wow.
So yeah, folks, I'm back. I'm back in the cage for 15 minutes of playtime. This time I'm engaged in a lengthy battle with a film that Mitchell and Christian already talked about, I think last season. Or maybe no, it was last season.
Yeah.
And that's Black Widow, which everybody said this was very bad. And I thought, okay, there have been MCU films that people have said were very bad. and I have come away just thinking that they were sort of boring. This will probably be one of those. But this is pretty bad. Sort of surprisingly so. I mean, what did they make right before this?
Eternals, Endgame, something.
I think it was Endgame.
Yeah, it was Endgame, wasn't it?
No, it was Spider-Man Far From Home.
Far From Home.
So we're going from like a 3 out of 5, like it's fine.
That's crazy.
That's kind of the worst that they have done at this point. Just sort of like, okay, I wasn't really impressed by it, to like, wow, this is a dropped bar. Everything about this movie feels so dated. I said that the pre-credits sequence, which is probably the most effective part of the movie, if I'm totally honest. Like, it's the most cohesive, and I believe the characters most. And I mean, seeing David Harbour on the wing of a plane with a machine gun as they take off, that's kind of an exciting idea for a set piece. But that all feels like an Iraq War era like family drama. And then the title sequence was where I went, oh no, we're in trouble here, because the graphics and the B-roll of women fighting in small rooms looks like the credit sequence to like CSI or a CSI affiliate, and they're playing a dramatic female-led cover of Nirvana's "Smells Like Teen Spirit," which is like a joke dramatic movie decision, and from there it just went, it just got worse. I think it's anything I could say about this movie has already been said by everybody else who went, yeah, this isn't a very good movie, and that was a correct assessment. Black Widow is just, she is the least compelling character in the movie, which is meant to be her movie. But she's so uninteresting that most of the time the movie doesn't even feel like it's about her, and she doesn't really even feel like Black Widow. When she's with the Avengers, Black Widow can kind of make these snarky little quips and have a little bit of an attitude, and that sort of gives her a little personality and makes her a character without her really being the center of attention. But when you take her away from those characters and give her characters who their identity has to be defined by their relationship to her, it just makes everybody boring, because there's nothing to build anything off of. And I think really the only thing that I'm tempted to say, that if it was a movie just about Florence Pugh's character, which I don't know if she is, I don't know if her character is like an established Marvel character, or it's just something, she's just something they came up with for this movie. But if it was about Rachel Weisz and David Harbour and Florence Pugh's characters, I feel like I would be willing to grant it a little more leniency, because the focus wouldn't be a totally uninteresting block of wood who doesn't really do very much in the movie at all. But that's not the case, so I can't do that.
That's
generous,
generous
things. The climax was not as bad as I expected it to be. It's not great, but after the movie came out, everybody was showing that shot of when Florence Pugh shoves a metal bar into the plane engine, and I went, oh dear, that looks very bad. That looks like she's, like, the close-ups looks like she's, look like a cameo that she recorded for like a kid's birthday party or something. But the rest of the fight, the wide shots aren't that bad, but that's not to say that it's good. I don't know, man. It's hard to talk about this one because there's so little to actually like remember in any respect. I think Florence Pugh's character comes back in one of the shows from what I've heard. I thought it was the Falcon and the Winter Soldier. That's what it's called. But I guess not. I don't know if David Harbour or Rachel Weisz come back. I doubt they will. A couple years ago.
David Harbour and Florence Pugh are both supposed to be in Thunderbolts. I'm not sure if that's a show or a movie,
Really?
but it's a thing.
That's very surprising to me. If this were like 5 or 6 years ago, I would not be surprised at that, because that's when these were like major money makers, and anybody who was anybody was in an MCU property. But now everybody involved in them treats them like jury duty in interviews. So that's kind of surprising to me, especially since this movie didn't do that well with anybody. So yeah, this was a 1 out of 5. This has surpassed Age of Ultron as my worst MCU film so far. Next time is Shang-Chi, which I remember hearing mostly middling things about. I'm kind of interested to see that one, just because they talked a big game up about like the martial arts in the movie.
They sure
so
did.
I think that can be at least a little interesting. And I hear a character that resembles Fing Fang Foom is in it, which could be fun. I'm in denial now about these movies. This is awful. It's like someone got me hooked on cocaine against my will, and now I'm trying to like espouse its medicinal properties because I'm stuck.
Zach, at this rate, I'm literally not kidding you, okay? At this rate, if you look at Phase 5 of the MCU, right? If you look at Phase 5 of the MCU, you can get rid of all of it and make Howard the Duck 2, and that would be much more appealing to me than what is next, okay?
You know what? You say that, but the one thing that I will actually go to the movies for as a Marvel property after the Marvelous Cinema Tour ends this season is if they make a Howard the Duck movie. if they make a Howard the Duck movie and they make it right, I'm talking Howard the Duck is a private detective with his own office who smokes big cigars and like basically Chinatown with a duck. That's what I've always said you should do as a Howard the Duck movie. If they do that, I will totally go see that movie. That movie will get my money, but I doubt that they will because Howard the Duck is a cursed property at this point. Yeah. So 1 out of 5 for Black Widow. We'll see what happens with Shang-Chi. And the one after that is Eternals, which I have heard nothing good about from anybody, even my most MCU-obsessed friends and enemies. So tune in next time if you want to see me watch a film that might be fine.
Boy, that was fun. Okay, well, is it time for the...
Yes, it is.
Running down.
So, dearest listeners, the tables have turned upon your host, Christian, this season, because Mitchell was the target of the rundown last season. I did it the 2 seasons before that. So now it is Christian's turn to be assaulted with terms and vocabulary, and Rosencrantz and Guildenstern have to host the segment.
Yes, that's exactly right. And
so, Mitchell, would you like to time this, or should I?
I'll time this. We know that I am
Okay.
the most put together and have the most strict timelines for things. So,
And would you like to begin, or shall I?
I
This is
wait.
terrifying.
I start.
Okay,
Okay.
whenever you're ready.
All right. Are you ready, Cristiano?
I guess.
You better be. All right. 3, 2, 1. Martin Scorsese.
3 out of 5.
ILM.
4 out of 5.
Rainy Endor.
4 out of 5.
On days like this, there's always a rainbow.
3 out of 5.
Lorax Spirit Squad.
3 out of 5.
Having another dream.
3 out of 5.
Into Thin Air, Good Ending.
3 out of 5.
Omen Bomb Dog.
2 out of 5.
Refusing to Identify as Dead.
4 out of 5.
To die in battle is to die like a dog.
4 out of 5.
Mitchell as Company Commander.
5 out of 5.
Artists being lunatics.
3 out of 5.
Zach as Vincent van Gogh.
2 out of 5.
Christian as art student.
Oh, God. 2 out of 5.
Take On Me music video.
4 out of 5.
The sun, it compels me to paint.
4 out of 5.
10 Seconds Japanese Nuclear Disaster.
4 out of 5.
I don't want a night so dark I can't see the stars.
3 out of 5.
3 seconds. 2 seconds. Monster Dino Line.
2 out of 5.
Time.
Okay.
Ooh.
All right.
We
I
have
don't
2.
think that went that
Too late.
badly
Okay.
for the first non-Christian hosted rundown.
Okay.
This is very stressful. It's more stressful for me to do it than it is to respond.
It's more stressful for all of us, I think.
Let's just cancel this whole thing. This is too stressful. 2023.
All right. I guess Mitchell is hosting next time.
Ooh, boy, howdy.
Usually I would be the second, but I pulled a snafu this season and accidentally lined up my guest wrong. So, Mitchell, you'll be our second host. What are we talking about next time?
I don't know if y'all have seen House of Gucci, but from the director of House of Gucci.
Oh.
Black Hawk Down. Black Hawk Down. Probably the greatest Bush era movie ever, okay? It's basically perfect propaganda for America, okay?
Let's go.
Yeah. I think it kind of speaks for itself. It's considered one of the it's not really modern anymore, but like modern war movies of all time. Best ever. I don't know. But we'll see. We'll see. Ridley Scott, if he's, up to muster at this point in his career.
Mm-hmm. If he's still the king. What did Jared Leto say in that? My wife. No, that's Borat. He did have a wife in that movie, though. I think he said it a couple times.
Yeah. No spoilers, Zach. No spoilers for Christian.
Yeah. Hey, stop it. Oh my gosh. Okay. It should return to mid-season form. This is what this is.
Wowie wow.
Yeah. This has been another installment of Cookie Pocket. Oh, and if you're a 4K fiend, Criterion is releasing Dreams in the 4K format for the first time this August. So,
Got to get that sponsor read in.
Not a sponsor, but we would sure like to be.
The 4K fiends.
Thank you, dear listener. I only wish you could see how silly Zach looks just holding his mic in his hand this entire time.
In my bathrobe.
It's quite the image.
It's not even June.
It's not even June.
Yep.
Okay. Well, bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.